We would not want the destruction of the Ukrainian state. Many here argue that Crimea once incorrectly joined Ukraine, that it is an inherently Russian territory, and so on. This is the wrong approach. Well, let's then go back to the times of Khan Batu, to the era of the Mongol Tatar yoke. Well, then we would have to give Kazakhstan the entire territory, practically all Russia, Western Europe, Eastern Europe. Well, except for Belarus, they somehow reached us, but they didn't attack us. So, why go back to what was? Redrawing borders is not possible. We have accepted many international legal norms that determine the stability and inviolability of borders.
Kazakhs consider Chinggis Khan their leader. This is normal, and I understand that. Indeed, Chinggis Khan was their ruler.
The Compendium of Chronicles by Rashid al-Din is the primary source of the history of the Chinggis Khan Empire. Let's look at the table of contents of the book. The book describes Turks, as well as Turks residing in the territory of modern Mongolia. The author of the book, the vizier of the state of Hulagu, explicitly wrote that Chinggis Khan was a Turk, and the book discusses Turks. During the Russian and Soviet times, primary sources were deliberately reinterpreted to undermine the national identity of Turkic nations. All of this was done to convince Turkic nations, Bashkirs, Kazakhs, Sahas, Tuvans, Tatars, Uzbeks, Turkmens, Azerbaijans, Kyrgyzs, Nagays, Karakalpaks, Altas, Karachais, Dolgans, Balkars, Gagauses etc., that they have no history. To omit from the school curriculum the Huns, Gokturks, Avars, Bulgars, Khazars. To completely rewrite the history of those Turks about whom silence is impossible, Golden Horde Altan Orda, Chinggis Khan's empire, and attribute it to another nation. To demonize the actions of those Turkic empires that remained in the school curriculum, Kipchaks, Golden Horde Altan Orda. How was it done in the USSR, using the example of the Book of Rashid al-Din? Soviet translators added Mongolian people in brackets to Rashid al-Din's text. Moscow ideologists in those times were already fearing the strengthening of Turkic people, and any interest in Turkic history by Kazakhs, Tatars, Uzbeks, and others was interpreted by the Kremlin as pan-Turkism. Petrushevsky wrote about this in the preface to Rashid al-Din's book. During that time, they actively started recording Turkic clans of Chinggis Khan, Naiman, Tatar, Jalair, Kiyut etc. as Mongolian. According to private correspondence of Rashid al-Din, it is evident that the Chinggis Khan state is a Turkic state. However, Soviet ideologists like Petrushevsky continued to add Mongols in parentheses in translations. Despite the overt policy of Turkophobia, Soviet special literature was forced to acknowledge that the Chinggis Khan Empire was a Turkic empire. In the school curriculum, it is, of course, silent about the fact that Chinggis Khan was a Turk. Do you think the attitude toward Turkic history in modern Russia has changed? Kremlin policy followers on Russian Wikipedia block articles related to the Chinggis Khan Empire. If during the USSR, the state was considered Tataro-Mongolian, now propagandists write Mongolian. Don't believe it? Try proving to Russian Wikipedia administrators, armed with evidence from the original work of Rashid al-Din, about the Turks. Propaganda against the history of Turkic people in modern Russia remains just as deceitful. The term Mangi-El was introduced by Chinggis Khan in the 13th century. There are many examples in history of borrowing ethnonyms. For example, modern Khalkha-speaking Mongols borrowed the name from the Turkic Empire Mangi-El of the 13th to 16th centuries, just as the ancient Macedonians were a Greek-speaking people, and modern Macedonians are a Slavic-speaking people. Bulgars of the Middle Ages, 6th to 9th centuries, were Turkic-speaking, and modern Bulgarian Slavs borrowed the name from the medieval Turkic Bulgars. The Rus people of the 9th century were a German-speaking ethnic group, while modern Russians are a Slavic-speaking people. Similar analogies of adopting ethnic names in history are numerous. The 13th century population of Mangi-El wrote in Turkic, using the Uyghur script. The state seal of Gayet Khan from the year 1246, placed on a letter sent to Pope Innocent IV, is preserved in the Vatican archives. The text is written in Uyghur script in Turkic language. Dutch specialist in Mongolian studies Leo de Hartog noted that Gayet Khan seal is written in Turkic, taken from the work Chinggis Khan, Conqueror of the World. Rashid al-Din, a historian of the Hulagids, created the Compendium of Chronicles on the orders of Ghazan Khan in the years 1300 to 1311. Rashid al-Din clearly defined in his work that it is about Turks, and the people of Mangi-El mentioned in the work are also Turks. Meng Hong, a Chinese ambassador of the Song dynasty in 1219, wrote in his work, Notes on Mughal Tatars, Mengde Belu, the Turks were at the origin of the formation of the Mughal Empire. The first European travelers and Arab chroniclers referred to the inhabitants of the Great Land as Tatars. Tatars were a general term for Turkic people in the Middle Ages among foreign authors. The Mangi-El of Chinggis Khan was a political alliance of various Turkic tribes united into a single state formation. In 1075, Mahmud Kashgari clearly described Tatars as a Turkic tribe. In his work, Divan Lugadat Turk 80 years before the birth of Chinggis Khan, Mahmud Kashgari described Tatars as a Turkic ethnic group. The Orkhon inscription of 732 AD mentions Tatars. Tatars are referenced in the epitaph of the Turkic Khaganate, 432 years before the birth of Chinggis Khan. The work The Secret History of the Yuan Dynasty, written in the 13th century, was renamed by European historians in the 19th century as The Secret History of the Mongols. In the 14th century, the manuscript came into the possession of the Chinese Ming dynasty. Between 1403 and 1425, it was translated into Chinese language. The original, written in Uyghur script, has been lost. The Mingyur xylographic edition, in turn, was rewritten several times and has not come down to us in its entirety in the Chinese language. In the narrative, it was mentioned about the destruction of the Tatars, but this destruction you should understand as the unification of Turkic tribes. The unification of Turkic folks was not without difficulties. Not all Turkic folks were willing to yield their existing power, leading to feuds, including conflicts with the Tatars. Altan Tabchi, a chronicle written in the language of Turks of China in 1651 to 1675, is a historical source of the Chinggis Khan Empire era. Mongolian scholars admit that they lost the language of Chinggis Khan and call it Old Mongolian. The language of Altan Tabchi is not understood by modern Khalkha Mongols. As there is no Old Mongolian language, it is a Turkic language, understood by Turkic folks. Modern Mongols call themselves Khalkha Mongols. This is a significant difference. Altan Daptar is a historical source from the era of the Chinggis Khan Empire. Altan Daptar is translated from Turkic as Golden Notebook. It has not reached our days. Rashid al-Din referred to this work. Marco Polo, 1254 to 1324, the Venetian explorer and representative of the Rome Pope in his Book of the Marvels of the World, wrote, "And here are the states of Un and Mogul. In the land of Un, there live the Angits, and in Mogul, empire of Chinggis Khan, there live the Tatars, that is, the Turks." He also wrote about the reception by Kublai Khan. They were intelligent people and knew the Tatar, Turkic, language, and later, the great Khan Kublai ordered documents to be prepared in Turkic language for dispatch to the apostle. In diplomatic correspondence with the Rome Pope, Turk Kublai Khan, who ruled the conquered Chinese territories, used Turkic language. Vladimir Tizingazin, 1825 to 1902, a Russian historian, mentioned in his works, on September 4, 1264, ambassadors from Egypt were received by the Khan of the Golden Horde Altan Orda, Baraki. The letter from the Sultan of Egypt was written in Turkic. Over 200 years, Cairo and Sarai exchanged 50 envoys. All internal and interstate document flow was conducted in the Turkic language. Western historians, following Muslim scholars, who couldn't read Uyghur script from top to bottom, mistakenly thought it was written in Mongolian. People of Mangi El did not speak Khalkha Mongolian. Because the people of Mangi El are not the same as the present-day Mongols. Mangi El of Chinggis Khan was a political union of various Turkic tribes united into a single state entity. Later, from the Chagatai Ulis, the Mogulistan state emerged a Turkic state in Central Asia, East Turkestan, Kashgaria, from 1347 to 1462. From Mogulistan, the empire of the Great Moguls originated, ruled by Babur. Benjamin Yudin, 1928 to 1983, a Soviet historian and Orientalist, stated, "The tribes in the Mongol Empire that are considered Mongols and the dominant ethnic element are, in reality, all or almost all Turks. Samples of the Mogul language have been preserved, and there is other evidence of their linguistic affiliation. All of this indicates that the Moguls spoke Turkic. Doubting the Turkic nature of the Moguls today means adhering to an already outdated tradition. The Moguls also participated in the formation of the Middle Jews. Undoubtedly, the Mogul Karats are the Kazakh Karats. The latter still occupy the territory of Jutisu, where the Mogul Karats once were, from the works Central Asia in the 14th to 18th centuries. Jean-Paul Roux, a French historian and Orientalist, stated, "In Mongolia and Siberia, the coexistence of Turkic and Mongolian races never took place. There was only one race, the Turkic race. The term Mongol is an invention. People now called Mongols were not called so in ancient times. This name was invented after their time had passed," from the work Tamerlane. Konstantin Inostrantsev, 1871 to 1941, a Russian historian and Orientalist, mentioned, "The Mongols are a collective political term given by Chinggis Khan in 1206 to his united people. Politically, they were Moguls, ethnically Turks," from the work About Mongols. Edward Parker, 1849 to 1926, a British historian and sinologist, stated, "Scythians, Huns, and Turks were different stages of historical development of the same Turkic tribes," from the work 1,000 Years of the Tatars, late 19th century, Liverpool, England. Charles Halpern, an English historian and Orientalist, said, his Mongols were, in reality, a tribal confederation of various Ural-Altaic peoples, mostly Turks, led by Chinggis Khan. Ilya Berezin, 1818-1896, a Russian historian and Orientalist, said, the Naimans were originally Turks, which is confirmed by the present Turkic language of this numerous tribe. The question of Turkic-speaking nomadic tribes in Mongolia arises naturally since Turkic people inhabited this territory 2,000 years before our era. Nikolai Kratin, a Soviet and Russian historian, stated, Chinggis Khan was not a Mongol, he created the Mongols. The answer to the question, was Chinggis Khan a Mongol at birth? Is one no, because such a nation did not exist at his birth. Being born in the midst of numerous Turkic tribes, he united them and gave them a new name, Mangi-El. Mangi-El of Chinggis Khan was a political union of various Turkic tribes, united into a single state entity. Ibn Abd al-Zahir, an Arab historian and chronicler from the 13th century, mentioned, the letter from the Sultan of Egypt to the Khan of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda was written and read in the Turkic language. The Khans of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, the Sultans of Egypt, the Ilkhans of Persia, the Sultans of India, and the Khans of China, corresponded with each other in their native Turkic language. Vasily Vasilyev, 1818-1900, a Russian historian and linguist, said, most likely, we can assume that Chinggis Khan did not speak the language that we now call Mongolian, also considering that the ancient Mongols who were of the same tribe as Chinggis Khan probably did not speak this language. During the period of uniting Turkic tribes by Chinggis Khan, disagreements naturally arose initially. Not everyone was willing to yield the existing power, and on this basis, internecine wars arose among brotherly clans. In the 16th century, the present-day Mongolian steppes were conquered and settled by the Manchus, who, after mixing with the local Turks, formed the modern Khalkha Mongols, or simply Khalkhas. Author Anatoly Olovintsev, from the work The Era of Chinggis Khan. Another piece of evidence that the term Mangi-El referred to Turks is the paisas discovered at various times during archaeological digs. Paisa is a Turkic word meaning a letter of credence, a mandate that endowed the holder with certain powers. Paisa of Takhta Khan from the 13th century. The Paisa of the ruler of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, Takhta Khan, is written in the Turkic language using the Uyghur script. Paisa of Takhta Khan, 1292-1312, is made of silver. Kept in the Hermitage, St. Petersburg. Paisa of Uzbek Khan, 1312-1341, from the 14th century. Golden Paisa, 294 mm by 98 mm, 469.2 grams, in Uyghur script, in Turkic language. By the command of Eternal Heaven, Tengri, the decree of Uzbek Khan, man, who does not submit, is guilty and must die. Kept in Moscow, in the State Historical Museum. Paisas of the Kublai dynasty, 13th to 14th centuries. Golden Paisa of the Yuan dynasty. Found in 1848 in China, in the city of Hohhot, inscribed in square script in the Turkic language. Kept in the local university. Minusинsk silver paisa. Weight 382.5 grams. Found in 1846 in the Yenisei province. Written in square script in the Turkic language. Kept in the Museum of Asia, Moscow. Message from Kublai Khan, a Turkic Khan who ruled the conquered Chinese lands, 1260-1294, to his descendants. The text is written in square script and Uyghur script in the Turkic language. Kept in the library of Istanbul University. Stone of Chinggis Khan, 1219-1225. The text is written in the Turkic language. Kept in the Hermitage, St. Petersburg. Another piece of evidence that the term Mangi-El referred to Turks is the titulature used by rulers. Khan, Kagan, Bek, and Ilkhan are Turkic titles. Mongols use the title Hintashi. Another confirmation can be found in the main toponyms. Chinggis Khan, when founding Mangi-El state, named it in Turkic Karakoram. Conquering Beijing, the Turks renamed the capital of China in Turkic to Kambalik. Altyn Orda is named in Turkic. Having founded the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, the capital was named in Turkic Saray. Vadim Rudakov, a candidate of historical sciences of the Russian Academy of Sciences, archaeologist, and specialist in the history and culture of the cities of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, emphasizes that the Golden Horde Altyn Orda was the most powerful and wealthiest empire among Turkic empires. When the famous traveler Ibn Battuta was in the Golden Horde Altyn Orda in the 1330s, he described huge cities with mosques, caravanserais, and palaces. It was a normal empire. They spoke in the Kipchak language. In Russia, Kipchaks were called Palavchans, in Europe, they were called Cumans. In the library of the famous poet Petrarch, the Codex Cumanicus was found, a dictionary in 3 languages: Cuman, Kipchak, Latin, and Persian. According to this dictionary, modern Turkic languages, Tatar, Bashkir, Nagai, Kumyk, Kazakh, and so on, have not changed much since those times. Russian rulers spoke Kipchak, which they called Palavchan or Tatar. It was considered good manners to communicate directly with the aristocracy of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda. Russian rulers had to ask the Khan of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda for the right to rule in the Turkic language. For example, Alexander Nevsky traveled to the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, but he understood that the Horde was a clear system of relationships, including trade and monetary ones. In contrast, if they went to the Crusaders, it would be much worse because the Crusaders would undoubtedly demand the acceptance of Catholicism. Emma Zalivinskaya, candidate of Historical Sciences of the Russian Academy of Sciences. Well, then the famous Monomax cap, it's also, in general, a tubite, slightly modified. Therefore, the influence was enormous. And it cannot be said that throughout the existence of the Golden Horde Altyn Orda, Russian principalities were under continuous oppression. No, it wasn't quite like that. By the resolution of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, Bolsheviks, dated August 9, 1944, it became forbidden in the USSR to study the history of Turkic empires, Huns, Avars, Khazars, Bulgars, Turkic Khanates, Uyghurs, Kyrgyz, Agas, Karakhanids, Seljuk Sultanates, Ghaznavids, Memluks, Timurids. The only thing that Soviet propaganda couldn't keep silent about was the empire of Chinggis Khan. But Soviet ideologists found a way out there. He wrote Turkic Mangi El State as modern Khalkha Mongols. This resolution of the Central Committee of the Communist Party, Bolsheviks, dated August 9, 1944, partly still operates in Russia. Therefore, in the Russian Wikipedia, you will not find any mentions that Chinggis Khan was Turk and his empire was Turkic. Russian Wikipedia administrators aggressively remove any Turkic mentions in articles related to the Mangi El Empire. Information about Turks in relation to Chinggis Khan can only be found in historical works. Mongolia's supporters who want to say that today's Mongols allegedly were once rulers of the Eurasian continent hint that the conqueror Mongol learned the language of the conquered peoples, namely Turkic, and did not speak or conduct records in his Khalkha language. Where have you seen a colonizer massively speaking the language of the conquered folks? As an example, we can cite Great Britain, which conquered vast territories around the world. Did all English people start speaking the languages of the folks they conquered? On the contrary, those nations almost forgot their own language and speak English. And there are many examples of this in history.